The training hall stretched wide and empty under cold blue lights. Minji stood at attention with the other human cadets, her back straight and her eyes forward. The metal floor beneath her boots was clean and polished. She could see her reflection in it, small and dark-haired among the others. Around them, alien cadets towered. The Krylon stood 7 feet tall with thick armor plates covering their bodies. The Sylvari moved like liquid shadow, their 6 limbs making them look like dancers even when standing still. The Torvan were built like walking tanks, broad and heavy with stone-like skin. And then there were the humans. Small, soft, weak-looking. That was what everyone thought anyway. Minji had been at the Galactic Coalition Military Academy for 8 months now. 8 long months of being pushed aside in the corridors. 8 months of instructors pairing her with opponents twice her size during combat drills. 8 months of watching her friends get hurt because the alien cadets didn't know how to hold back. Or maybe they knew. Maybe they just didn't care. Beside her, Junho shifted his weight. She could see the bruise on his jaw from yesterday's sparring match. A Krylon cadet had struck him too hard. The instructor had called it an accident. Unyo hadn't said anything. None of them did. Speaking up only made things worse. The doors at the far end of the hall hissed open. General Vexthor entered. Minji felt her stomach tighten. The general was Krylon, larger than most of his kind. 4 arms swung at his sides as he walked. His exoskeleton was deep purple, marked with scars from old battles. His eyes were black and cold. He looked at the human cadets the way someone might look at insects. "Attention!" Instructor Thalrin called out. The Sylvari instructor was one of the few who treated humans fairly, but even he looked nervous now. All the cadets snapped to attention. Minji kept her eyes straight ahead. General Vexthor walked slowly down the line. His footsteps were heavy. When he passed the Krylon cadets, he nodded with approval. When he passed the Torvan, he grunted in satisfaction. When he reached the humans, he stopped. "These are the humans," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. He spoke in Galactic Common, but his accent was thick. "Earth's finest warriors," they told us. "The newest members of the Coalition." He laughed. It was not a kind sound. "I see children," he continued. "Weak, soft. How did your species survive long enough to reach the stars? Your bones look like they would break if I breathed on them too hard." Minji felt heat rise in her chest. She pushed it down. She had learned to swallow anger. Her grandmother had taught her that. Control yourself first, then control the situation. That was the first lesson. General Vexthor stepped closer to Junho. "You, cadet. What is your name?" "Cadet Junho, sir," Junho said. His voice was steady, but Minji could hear the tension in it. "Junho," the general repeated. "Tell me, Junho, why are you here?" "To serve the Coalition, sir. To protect the innocent and uphold peace, sir." "To protect?" Vexthor leaned down. Even hunched, he towered over Junho. "How will you protect anyone when you can barely protect yourself?" "I watched the training logs. You lost every single combat drill this month." "Every single one," Junho said nothing. His jaw was tight. "Speak, cadet." "Yes, sir." "I lost them, sir." "Because you are weak," Vexthor said. "Your species is weak. You do not belong here." Minji's hands curled into fists behind her back. She kept her face blank. No expression. No reaction. Just like her grandmother taught her. Be like water. Show nothing until you need to. The general moved down the line. He stopped in front of Minji. She was shorter than him by more than 2 feet. She had to tilt her head back to keep her eyes forward. "And you," he said. "You are even smaller than the others. A female human. Do you know what we call your kind in Krylon language?" "No, sir." "Breakable things," he said. "That is what you are, breakable. I could snap you in half without effort." Minji kept breathing steadily. "In through the nose, out through the mouth." "Stay calm." "Nothing to say?" Vexthor asked. "No, sir." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned away and addressed the entire hall. "Today we will conduct combat demonstrations," he announced. "I will show these humans what real strength looks like, what real training produces. Perhaps then they will understand their place." Instructor Thalrin stepped forward. "General, with respect, the human cadets have only been training for—" "Silence." Vexthor cut him off. "This is my training hall. We will proceed." The general pointed at a Krylon cadet. "You, step forward." The cadet obeyed immediately. Vexthor demonstrated a series of strikes, each one powerful enough to dent metal. The watching aliens murmured with approval. The movements were brutal and direct, No wasted motion, just raw power. Then Vexthor called forward a human cadet, a young man named Taeyang. He was one of the bigger humans, but still small compared to the aliens. "Defend yourself," Vexthor ordered. Taeyang took a fighting stance. He had been learning the coalition combat style, trying to adapt human techniques to match alien strength. It didn't matter. Vexthor moved fast for his size. One of his forearms shot forward and grabbed Taeyang's wrist. Another arm struck his chest. Taeyang flew backward and hit the mat hard. The air rushed out of his lungs. "Pathetic," Vexthor said. He called forward another human. Then another. Each time the result was the same. The humans tried to defend themselves, but the general was too strong, too fast. He wasn't trying to teach them. He was trying to humiliate them. Minji watched every movement. She studied the way he positioned his weight, the way he telegraphed his strikes just slightly before launching them, the way his joints moved when he grabbed and threw. She memorized all of it. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Watch first. Learn second. Act third. Never rush. Patience is the strongest weapon." Finally, Vexthor turned to the humans who were still standing. His eyes found Minji. "You," he said. "Small one. Come here." Minji stepped forward. Her heart was beating fast, but her face remained calm. She bowed slightly, a sign of respect in human culture. "Do you think bowing will save you?" Vexthor asked. "No, sir," Minji said quietly. "Then why do it?" "Because respect costs nothing, sir." Several alien cadets laughed. Vexthor's eyes narrowed. "Respect is earned," he said, "not given freely. You humans do not understand this. You are too soft, too emotional, too weak." He circled her slowly. Minji stood still, her hands at her sides. "I will make this simple for you," Vexthor said. "Try to hit me. Anywhere. If you can land a single strike, I will apologize to every human in this hall. If you cannot, you will admit that humans do not belong in the coalition military." The room went silent. Instructor Thalrin stepped forward again. "General, this is not appropriate." "One strike," Vexthor interrupted. "Surely even a weak human can manage that." Minji looked up at him. She saw the cruelty in his eyes. He wanted her to fail. He wanted all humans to fail. This wasn't about training. This was about proving that humans were inferior. She took a breath. "Sir, I respectfully decline," she said. Vexthor's expression darkened. "You refuse?" "I refuse to participate in a demonstration designed to humiliate rather than educate, sir." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You dare to question me?" Vexthor said, his voice low and dangerous. "I question the purpose of the exercise, sir, not your authority." For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then General Vexthor smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Perhaps you need a lesson in respect," he said softly. His primary right arm moved. Not in a training strike. Not in a demonstration. He swung his massive hand directly at Minji's face with real force. Everything that happened next took exactly 4 seconds. The impact of General Vexthor's hand against Minji's face made a sound like a whip crack. Her head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across her cheek and jaw. She tasted blood immediately. The metallic tang filled her mouth as her lips split open. The training hall went completely silent. Minji's vision blurred for a moment. Red and white spots danced in front of her eyes. Her ear rang with a high-pitched whine. She stumbled but did not fall. Her boots stayed planted on the metal floor. General Vexthor lowered his arm slowly. He was smiling. Around the hall, some of the alien cadets looked shocked. Others looked satisfied. The human cadets stood frozen, horror written on their faces. Instructor Thalrin started to move forward but stopped. What could he do? Vexthor was a general. He outranked everyone in this room. Minji stood very still. Blood dripped from her chin onto the polished floor. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3. She turned her head back to face the general. Her left cheek was already swelling. Her eye would be black by tomorrow. But her expression was calm. "Empty even, sir," she said quietly. "You struck me." "I did," Vexthor replied. "And you did nothing." "As I expected. Humans are all words and no action. You talk about respect, but you cannot even defend yourselves." Minji blinked slowly. Her grandmother's voice was in her head again. Not the lesson about patience this time. A different lesson. One her grandmother had taught her when she was 12 years old after a boy at school had pushed her down. Sometimes, the old woman had said, patience ends. Sometimes you must show the tiger your teeth. But when you do, make sure the tiger never forgets, sir, Minji said again. Her voice was still quiet, but something in it had changed. Academy Regulation 7.3 states that any cadet has the right to defend themselves against unprovoked assault, regardless of rank. Is that correct? General Vexthor's smile faded slightly. What? Regulation 7.3, sir. May I defend myself? Vexthor laughed, though it sounded uncertain now. You think you can defend yourself against me? You can barely stand after one hit. Is that a yes, sir? The general's forearm spread wide. By all means, human. Try. What happened next happened so fast that most of the watching cadets didn't fully understand it until they watched the security recording later. Vexthor reached for her again, this time with his lower right arm. He was going to grab her shoulder and throw her down. Another humiliation, another lesson about human weakness. Minji moved. Her right hand shot up and caught his wrist just as it came within reach. Not trying to stop it. That would be impossible. Instead, she moved with it, redirecting the force. Her fingers found the pressure point between the two bones of his forearm. She pressed down hard. Vexthor grunted in surprise. Before he could react, Minji stepped forward and to the side, inside his guard. Her body was now close to his. Too close for him to use his long reach effectively. Her left hand came up and grabbed his elbow. She pushed up while pulling down with her other hand. The joint began to hyperextend. Vexthor tried to pull away, but Minji was already moving again. She dropped her weight, using gravity and leverage instead of strength. The general's superior mass worked against him. His arm bent at an angle it was not designed to bend. Then she rotated. It was a move from Hapkido, an earth martial art that her grandmother had taught her. It used the opponent's strength against them. The bigger they were, the harder they fell. It worked on humans. It worked on aliens, too. Minji twisted her entire body, applying pressure to 3 points simultaneously: wrist, elbow, and shoulder. General Vexthor's exoskeleton was strong, but his joints were not. They were designed for strength, not flexibility. Something inside his wrist gave way with a sharp crack. Vexthor roared in pain. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. He dropped to one knee, his other 3 arms clutching at the injured limb. Minji released him immediately and took 3 steps back. She stood at attention, arms at her sides. Blood still dripped from her chin. "Sir," she said, her voice steady. "You struck first. I responded with appropriate force to neutralize the threat, as per Academy Regulation 7.3, sir." For 5 long seconds no one moved. No one spoke. No one even seemed to breathe. Then chaos erupted. Instructor Thalrin rushed forward, his 6 limbs moving in a blur. "Medical team now!" 2 silvery medics appeared from the side of the training hall. They carried a medical kit and a portable scanner. They moved to General Vexthor, who was still kneeling, his face twisted in pain and shock. Other instructors appeared. Security personnel entered through the main doors. Their weapons were not drawn, but their hands rested on them. A Torvan security officer, massive and stone-faced, approached Minji. "Cadet, you will come with us." "Yes, sir," Minji said. She did not resist as 2 guards positioned themselves on either side of her. Junho started to step forward. "Wait," she was defending. "Stay back, cadet," the Torvan officer ordered. Minji looked at Junho and shook her head slightly. "Do not make this worse," her expression said. The medics were scanning General Vexthor's wrist. One of them looked up, his face unreadable. "The wrist is fractured in 3 places. The ligaments are torn. He will need regeneration therapy." "That weak human did this?" one of the Krylon cadets said, disbelief clear in his voice. The medic nodded slowly. General Vexthor struggled to his feet, cradling his injured arm. His face was dark with rage and humiliation. "That human attacked me. She assaulted a superior officer. I want her arrested, court-martialed, expelled." Instructor Thalrin's voice cut through the noise. "General, the security cameras recorded everything. The footage will show." "I do not care what the footage shows," Vexthor roared. "She broke my wrist." "You struck her first, sir," Thalrin said carefully. "With full force. An unprovoked assault on a cadet. I was conducting a training exercise." "You struck her in anger, sir. Not as training." Everyone in this hall saw it. Vexthor looked around the training hall. Many of the alien cadets looked away. Some of the humans were crying quietly. Others looked angry. The instructors' faces were carefully neutral. "It does not matter," Vexthor said, his voice low and dangerous. "She is human. I am a general of the coalition. Who do you think they will believe?" The security officers led Minji toward the door. She walked calmly, her back straight. Just before she left the training hall, she looked back once. Junho was watching her with wide eyes. So were the other human cadets. She gave them the smallest nod. "Stay strong," the gesture said. "This is not over." Then she was gone, escorted down the bright corridors of the academy. Her face throbbed with pain. Her knuckles were starting to swell. But inside she felt calm. She had done what needed to be done. Let them judge her for it. The guards took her to a small holding room. It was bare except for a metal bench and a table. They left her there alone. The door locked with a heavy click. Minji sat down on the bench. She touched her swollen lip gently and winced. The bleeding had mostly stopped. She would have a spectacular bruise tomorrow. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her grandmother's face appeared in her mind. The old woman was smiling. "Well done, little tiger," she would have said. "You showed them your teeth." Minji allowed herself a small smile, then winced again as it pulled at her split lip. Hours passed. No one came. Minji sat quietly, controlling her breathing, keeping her mind clear. She had learned meditation from her grandmother, too. "Pain is just information," the old woman had taught her. "Acknowledge it, then let it go." Finally, the door opened. A tall silvery officer entered. She wore the insignia of the Judge Advocate General's office. Behind her came 2 more officers and a recording device that floated in the air. "Cadet Minji," the Silvari officer said. "I am Commander Vellana.
I will be investigating this incident."
You are being charged with assault on a superior officer. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Minji said. "Do you deny that you broke General Vexthor's wrist?" "No, ma'am." "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Minji met the commander's eyes. "He hit me first, ma'am. I defended myself according to Academy regulations. I used the minimum force necessary to stop the threat." Commander Vellana studied her for a long moment. "You call breaking a general's wrist minimum force?" "He is 7 feet tall and weighs approximately 400 pounds, ma'am. He has 4 arms, each one stronger than my entire body. He struck me with intent to harm. I responded by targeting a single joint. I released him immediately once the threat was neutralized. That is minimum force, ma'am." The commander's expression did not change. "You will be held here until the tribunal convenes. That will likely be within 48 hours. Until then, you are confined to quarters. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Commander Vellana turned to leave, then paused. "Cadet, off the record, how long did it take you to break his wrist?" Minji thought about it. 4 seconds, ma'am." The commander's eyes widened slightly. Then she nodded and left the room. Minji was alone again. She lay down on the bench and closed her eyes. 4 seconds. That was all it had taken to change everything. The tribunal chamber was built to intimidate. High ceilings stretched up into shadow. The walls were made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. At the front of the room, 5 judges sat behind a raised platform. 3 were Krylon, 1 was Silvari, and 1 was Torvan. No humans. That told Minji everything she needed to know about how this would go. She stood in the center of the room, alone. Her hands were cuffed in front of her. Though the cuffs were ceremonial rather than functional, she wore her cadet uniform, clean and pressed. The bruise on her face had turned deep purple and yellow. Her lip was still swollen. To her right sat General Vexthor. His wrist was encased in a white regeneration cast. 3 of his arms rested on the table in front of him. The injured one lay carefully in his lap. His lawyer, a severe-looking Krylon female, sat beside him. To Minji's left was an empty chair. Her lawyer had not arrived yet. The lead judge, an elderly Krylon with silver markings on his exoskeleton, banged his gavel. "This tribunal will come to order. We are here to address the charges against Cadet Minji, human of Earth. The charge is assault on a superior officer, specifically General Vexthor. How does the cadet plead?" Minji opened her mouth to speak, but the doors at the back of the chamber burst open. A human man strode in. He was tall for a human, with sharp features and intelligent eyes. He wore a formal suit in Earth style, black with a white shirt. He carried a datapad and a leather briefcase. He moved with confidence. ignoring the stares from the alien observers in the gallery. "Apologies for my tardiness, honored judges," he said, bowing slightly. "I am attorney Hyunwoo, representing Cadet Minji. I came as quickly as possible from Earth." The lead judge frowned. This tribunal was not informed that the cadet had retained counsel. "Because she had not," Hyunwoo said smoothly. "I am here of my own accord. The Earth Federation takes this matter very seriously. When one of our citizens is charged with a crime, especially one involving interspecies relations, we ensure proper representation." "Very well," the judge said, though he did not sound pleased. "Take your seat. Now, Cadet, how do you plead?" Hyunwoo touched Minji's shoulder briefly before sitting. The gesture was reassuring. "My client pleads not guilty, Your Honor." Murmurs ran through the gallery. General Vexthor's lawyer stood immediately. "Not guilty? The facts are not in dispute." The cadet broke General Vexthor's wrist. "There were dozens of witnesses. The medical evidence is clear. The action is not in dispute," Hyunwoo said calmly. "The crime is, my client acted in lawful self-defense." "Self-defense?" The general's lawyer scoffed. "Against a superior officer during a training exercise?" "Against an unprovoked assault," Hyunwoo corrected. The lead judge held up one hand for silence. "We will proceed with opening statements. Counselor for the prosecution, you may begin." The Krylon lawyer stood. She was tall and imposing, her voice sharp and clear. "Honored judges, this case is straightforward. Cadet Minji assaulted General Vexthor, a decorated officer with 30 years of service. She broke his wrist using excessive force. This was not an accident. It was deliberate. The medical scans show precision damage indicating skill and intent. She activated a holographic display. An image of Vexthor's wrist appeared, showing the fractures in glowing red. 3 breaks, multiple torn ligaments. The general will require weeks of regeneration therapy. This level of damage demonstrates dangerous, violent behavior. Cadet Minji is a threat to other personnel. We ask that she be expelled from the academy, stripped of rank, and barred from coalition service." The lawyer sat down. The gallery murmured approval. The lead judge looked at Hyunwoo. "Defense counsel, your opening statement?" Hyunwoo stood slowly. He did not look at the judges. Instead, he looked at General Vexthor. "General, may I ask you a question?" Vexthor glared at him. "This is not the time for questions." "I will allow it," the lead judge said. "Briefly, thank you, Your Honor." Hyunwoo turned fully to face the general. "General Vexthor, why did you hit Cadet Minji?" "I did not hit her. I was conducting a demonstration." "A demonstration where you struck a cadet in the face with full force?" "It was not full force," Vexthor said, but his voice was uncertain. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "We will return to that. Honored judges, this case is indeed straightforward, but not in the way the prosecution suggests. The evidence will show that General Vexthor assaulted Cadet Minji without provocation, violating academy regulations and basic military conduct. My client defended herself using appropriate measured force. What happened in that training hall was not a crime. It was justice." He sat down. The chamber was silent for a moment. "We will now hear testimony," the lead judge said. "Prosecution, call your first witness." The prosecution called a series of alien cadets. Each one described the incident from their perspective. Yes, the general had hit the human, but it was just a training exercise. Yes, it seemed harsh, but Krylon training was always harsh. The humans needed to learn. They were too soft. Then the prosecution called General Vexthor himself. He took the stand, his injured arm still in its cast. He spoke with authority and anger. "I have trained thousands of cadets over my career. I have never had one attack me before. That human is dangerous. She has no control, no discipline. She responded to a simple correction with violence." "A simple correction?" Hyunwoo said when it was his turn to question. "Is that what you call striking a cadet in the face?" "I barely touched her. You barely touched her." Hyunwoo activated his own holographic display. "This is Cadet Minji's medical scan from immediately after the incident. Fractured cheekbone, grade 2 concussion, split lip requiring 3 stitches, internal bleeding in the mouth. Does this look like barely touched to you, General?" Vexthor said nothing. "The scan also shows impact force," Hyunwoo continued. "Shall I read the numbers? The force of your strike was equivalent to being hit by a ground vehicle traveling at 20 kilometers per hour. That is not training. That is assault. She disrespected me," Vexthor said, his voice rising. "She refused a direct order. She declined to participate in an exercise designed to humiliate her. Hyunwoo countered. That is not disrespect. That is dignity. And it certainly does not justify violence. The general's lawyer objected, but Hyunwoo had already made his point. The next witness was Instructor Thalrin. The Silvery took the stand carefully, his 6 limbs folded in a posture of neutrality. Instructor, Hyunwoo said, please describe what you observed. Thalrin spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. General Vexthor was conducting demonstrations. They were aggressive, more aggressive than standard training protocols allow. When Cadet Minji declined to participate in a one-sided exercise, the general became angry. He struck her. It was not a training technique. It was a blow delivered in anger. And how did Cadet Minji respond? She defended herself. The entire sequence lasted approximately 4 seconds. She applied a joint lock technique executed with precision. She released the general immediately, once he was no longer a threat. It was textbook defensive action. In your professional opinion, was her response excessive? Thalrin hesitated. Then he said, no. Given the size and strength difference and given that the general had already demonstrated violent intent, her response was measured and appropriate. If anything, she showed remarkable restraint. Restraint? The prosecution lawyer said. She broke his wrist. She could have broken his neck, Thalrin said quietly. She chose not to. The chamber went silent. More witnesses testified. Human cadets described months of harsh treatment. Other instructors admitted that the human cadets were often paired with opponents far beyond their experience level. The pattern became clear. Humans were being systematically mistreated. Then Hyunwoo called his final witness. I call Dr. Yuna, xenobiology specialist from Earth. A small human woman entered the chamber. She wore the white coat of a scientist and carried a data pad. She bowed to the judges and took the stand. Dr. Yuna, Hyunwoo said, please explain your area of expertise. I study comparative biology across species, she said. Specifically, I analyze physical capabilities and evolutionary adaptations. Have you studied human physical capabilities? Yes, extensively. What have you learned? Dr. Yuna activated her datapad. Charts and graphs appeared in the holographic display. Humans evolved on Earth, a high-gravity world with extreme environmental pressures. Our planet has more predators than any coalition homeworld. We developed unique survival traits, high endurance, excellent fine motor control, superior grip strength, and most importantly, we are persistence hunters. What does that mean? It means humans evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for days. We can fight while injured. We can tolerate extreme pain. These traits made us apex predators on our world. She pulled up more data. I have been analyzing the Coalition's initial assessment of human capabilities. They are incorrect, significantly incorrect. Human bone density is 30% higher than estimated. Our fast twitch muscle response is 40% faster. Our pain tolerance is off the charts compared to other Coalition species. In other words, Hyunwoo said, humans are stronger and tougher than anyone realized? Yes, much stronger. We have been holding back because we thought that was what the Coalition wanted. We thought we needed to fit in. We were wrong. The verdict came the next morning. Minji stood in the center of the tribunal chamber again, her hands uncuffed this time. Hyunwoo stood beside her. The gallery was packed with cadets and officers from every species. News of the trial had spread through the academy like fire. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the human who broke a general's wrist. The 5 judges entered and took their seats. The lead judge looked older and more tired than yesterday. He picked up his gavel but did not strike it yet. This tribunal has reviewed all evidence and testimony, he said. We have examined the security recordings frame by frame. We have consulted medical experts and legal scholars. This has been a difficult case because it strikes at the heart of what the Coalition stands for. Unity among different species, mutual respect, justice. He paused and looked directly at Minji. Cadet Minji, this tribunal finds you not guilty of assault on a superior officer. The gallery exploded with noise. Some aliens cheered. Others shouted in anger. The human cadets in the back rows hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this chamber! When silence finally returned, he continued. The evidence clearly shows that General Vexthor struck first with intent to harm. His action violated Academy Regulation 4.2, which prohibits instructors from using unnecessary force on cadets. It violated Regulation 7.3, which protects cadets from assault, and it violated the basic principles of military conduct. Cadet Minji acted in lawful self-defense. Her response was measured and appropriate given the threat she faced. He turned to General Vexthor, who sat rigid in his chair, his face dark with humiliation. General Vexthor, you have served the Coalition for 30 years. You have earned honors and respect. But what you did in that training hall was unworthy of your rank and your position. You allowed personal prejudice to override professional judgment. You assaulted a cadet under your care. For this, you are hereby demoted to the rank of commander and reassigned from training duty. You will undergo counseling on interspecies relations. This is final. Vexthor stood abruptly. For a moment, it looked like he might argue. But then he simply nodded once and walked out of the chamber, his forearms held stiffly at his sides. The lead judge looked back at Minji. Cadet, you are free to return to your duties. This incident will not appear on your record. This tribunal also recommends that you receive commendation for your restraint and discipline under extreme circumstances. Thank you, Your Honor, Minji said quietly. One more thing, the judge added. This case has revealed serious gaps in the Coalition's understanding of human capabilities. We are ordering a complete reassessment. The Academy will conduct comprehensive testing of all human physical and mental capabilities. We must know what humans are truly capable of, not what we assumed they were capable of. He struck his gavel. This tribunal is adjourned. Minji walked out of the chamber in a daze. Yunya was waiting in the corridor. He grabbed her in a tight hug, lifting her off her feet. You did it! You actually did it. Put me down, Minji said, but she was smiling. Other human cadets crowded around her. They were all talking at once, celebrating, crying, laughing. For months they had been treated as weak and inferior. Now finally someone had stood up for them. Someone had shown the aliens that humans were not helpless. But as the celebration continued around her, Minji felt a strange emptiness. She had won the trial, yes, but what came next? Would things really change, or would this make everything worse? She got her answer 3 weeks later. The Academy established a new testing facility in the lower levels. All human cadets were called for evaluation. Minji arrived with Junho and the others, uncertain what to expect. The testing was extensive. Strength tests, endurance tests, reaction time measurements, pain tolerance assessments. They ran on treadmills for hours. They lifted weights until their muscles screamed. They faced increasingly difficult combat simulations. The alien scientists and doctors running the tests grew more and more astonished as the results came in. Dr. Yuna was there, overseeing the human side of the research. She met with Minji after the 3rd day of testing. The results are remarkable, Dr. Yuna said, showing her data on a tablet. Everything I theorized is proving true. Humans have the highest endurance of any coalition species. Your pain tolerance is 3 times higher than the Krylon average. Your reaction time in stress situations exceeds combat AI predictions. What does that mean? Minji asked. It means the Coalition has been underestimating humans since the day we joined. They saw us as small and soft. They did not understand that we evolved on a death world. Earth is more dangerous than any Coalition planet. We had to become tough just to survive. She pulled up more charts. Look at this. Humans are one of only 3 species in the entire Coalition that can throw objects with deadly accuracy. Your ancestors killed prey and fought enemies by throwing rocks and spears. That requires incredible hand-eye coordination and spatial awareness. Most aliens cannot do this. The Krylon are stronger than us, Minji said. In pure muscle power, yes. But strength is not everything. Humans have flexibility, endurance, the ability to think clearly while in pain or under stress. We can fight while injured. We can keep going long after other species would collapse. These are the traits of apex predators. Minji thought about her grandmother. The old woman had been small and thin, but she could break boards with her bare hands. She had once told Minji that size did not matter. Technique matters. Will matters. The mind matters. What will happen now? Minji asked. Now everything changes, Dr. Yuna said. The Coalition is rewriting its assessment of human capabilities. They are developing new training programs that take advantage of human strengths, instead of trying to force us into alien molds. And they are watching you, Minji. You have become a symbol of what humans can do. That part was true. Everywhere Minji went in the Academy, aliens stared at her. Some looked at her with new respect. Others looked at her with fear. The human cadets treated her like a hero. The alien cadets gave her a wide space in the corridors. Instructor Thalrin called her to his office one afternoon. "Cadet Minji, please sit," she sat. The silvery instructor studied her with his dark eyes. "How are you adjusting since the trial?" "Fine, sir. Do not lie to me, cadet. I see how the others avoid you. You make them uncomfortable." Minji said nothing. It was true. "They fear you now," Thalrin continued. "Before they dismissed you as weak. Now they know you can hurt them. They do not know how to respond to that. Fear and respect often look similar from the outside, but they are not the same thing." "What should I do, sir?" "Teach them," Thalrin said. "Help them understand. The coalition is stronger when all species contribute their unique strengths. Humans have strengths we did not recognize. Show us how to use them." "I do not know if I can do that, sir." "You already have," the instructor said, "by standing up for yourself. By refusing to accept unjust treatment. You have shown every human in the academy that they do not need to make themselves smaller to fit in. That is leadership, cadet, whether you wanted it or not." Over the following weeks, something unexpected began to happen. Alien cadets started approaching human cadets with questions. "How did you learn to do that joint lock? Can you teach me that throwing technique? Why can you run for so long without stopping?" The humans, surprised and uncertain at first, began to share what they knew. Junyo started teaching a mixed group of humans and aliens about human martial arts. Another human cadet, a woman named Bora, organized endurance running groups. The aliens struggled at first. Their bodies were not built for human-style persistence, but they learned. They adapted. One day, Minji found herself teaching a group of Krylon cadets about leverage and joint manipulation. They towered over her, but they listened carefully as she demonstrated how to use an opponent's strength against them. "You are stronger than me," she told them. "Much stronger. But strength can be redirected, watch." She had one of the Krylon cadets, a young male named Crix, grab her wrist. He was gentle, afraid of hurting her. "No," she said. "Grab me like you mean it." "I can take it." He gripped her wrist tightly. She barely seemed to move, but suddenly Crix was off balance, his own weight working against him. She guided him down to one knee without seeming to exert any effort at all. "How?" he asked, astonished. "Physics," Minji said. "You do not need to be stronger than your opponent. You just need to understand how bodies work, how joints bend, where the weak points are. My grandmother taught me this when I was a child. She was 70 years old and weighed 40 kilograms, but she could throw men twice her size." The Krylon cadets practiced with enthusiasm. They were learning to see humans not as weaklings to be dismissed, but as fellow warriors with different skills. Not everyone was happy about the changes. There were still instructors who resented humans, cadets who muttered about humans being too aggressive, too dangerous. But the tide was shifting. Then came the day that everything shifted even further. The alarms throughout the academy began to wail. Red emergency lights flashed. A voice over the intercom announced, "All personnel to stations. This is not a drill. The coalition is under attack. Repeat, the coalition is under attack." Minji ran with the other cadets to the assembly hall. On the giant screens, the transport ship rattled as it descended through the atmosphere of Praxis 7. Minji gripped her rifle tightly and watched the other members of her squad. 3 humans, 4 Krylon, 2 Sylvari, and 1 Torvan. They had been assigned together 3 days ago. Before that, they had never met. Now they were expected to fight as a unit. The situation was desperate. The Krith swarm had swept through 3 systems already. They did not capture. They did not occupy. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on. Billions had already died. Praxis 7 was a colony world with 20 million civilians. The coalition had established a defensive line to hold the planet long enough to evacuate. That line was failing. 2 minutes to drop zone, the pilot's voice crackled over the comm. "Good luck down there. You're going to need it." Crix, the Krylon cadet who had learned joint locks from Minji, checked his weapon for the 3rd time. His hands were shaking slightly. "I have never been in real combat before." "None of us have," Junho said. He sat next to Minji, his face set in hard lines. "We just do what we trained for." "Training does not prepare you for this," one of the Sylvari cadets said. Her name was Lyra. "I saw the casualty reports. 70% losses in some units. The Krith do not stop. They do not retreat. They just keep coming. Then we keep fighting," Minji said quietly. Until we cannot fight anymore. That is all we can do. The transport jolted as it touched down. The rear ramp dropped open, revealing chaos. The landing zone was a contested area on the outskirts of a city. Buildings burned in the distance. Explosions echoed across the landscape. Energy weapons lit up the darkening sky. Move! 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 A Torvan sergeant was screaming at them. Get to the defensive line. Sector 7 is collapsing, they ran. Minji's combat armor felt heavy and awkward. She had only trained with it for a few hours. Around her, other squads were scrambling for position. Coalition soldiers were everywhere, some moving forward, others falling back. The wounded lay on stretchers, screaming. They reached a makeshift barricade of overturned vehicles and rubble. A Krylon officer pointed them to positions along the line. Hold here. Do not let anything through. Civilians are evacuating 3 blocks behind us. Minji took cover behind a chunk of broken concrete. Yunyo crouched beside her. She could see the fear in his eyes. She felt it in her own chest, a tight knot of terror that she forced down. We are going to be okay, she told him, not believing it herself. Then the Krith arrived. They came in a black wave, thousands of them. They looked like enormous insects, each one the size of a ground vehicle. They had multiple legs, snapping mandibles, and armored carapaces. They made a chittering sound that rose to a deafening roar. They did not move like soldiers. They moved like a swarm, flowing over the ground like living water. Open fire, someone screamed. The defensive line erupted with weapons fire. Energy beams and projectiles tore into the Krith swarm. The creatures in front fell, their bodies torn apart. But more came behind them. Always more. They climbed over their own dead without slowing down. Minji fired her rifle. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. She saw a Krith creature stumble and fall. She fired again. And again. Her hands moved automatically. Years of training taking over while her conscious mind seemed to float somewhere above her body, watching in disbelief. The Krith reached the barricade. A creature leaped over the rubble directly in front of her. Its mandibles snapped at her face. She threw herself backward, rolling. The creature landed where she had been, its claws tearing gouges in the ground. Junho shot it. The energy beam punched through its carapace. Green fluid sprayed out. The creature kept moving. Hunyo shot it again. It finally collapsed. They do not die easy, he shouted. More Krith poured over the barricade. Hand-to-hand combat erupted along the line. A Sylvari soldier went down screaming as a Krith creature tore into him with its mandibles. A Torvan smashed another creature with his bare fists, his stone-like skin protecting him from its claws. Minji found herself face-to-face with a Krith. She had no room to use her rifle. The creature lunged at her. She dropped the rifle and moved on instinct. The same movements her grandmother had drilled into her 1,000 times. She sidestepped the creature's charge, grabbed one of its limbs, and used its own momentum to redirect it. The Krith slammed into the barricade behind her. Before it could recover, she drew her combat knife and drove it into the joint where the creature's head met its body. Green fluid sprayed over her hands. The creature thrashed once and went still. She had no time to think. Another Krith was coming. She met it with the knife, striking at joints and weak points. Her grandmother's voice was in her head. Every creature has vulnerable spots, find them. Use them. Around her the battle raged. The coalition line was holding, but barely. Bodies lay everywhere. Human, alien, and Krith all mixed together in death. Then she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A low horn blown somewhere behind the lines. She knew what it meant. Retreat. Fall back to the secondary position. Pull back. The Torvan officer was shouting. Fighting withdrawal. Cover each other. It was the hardest thing Minji had ever done. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but they had to move slowly, covering each other, making sure no one was left behind. Her squad moved together, firing and retreating, firing and retreating. They fell back through the ruined streets. The Krith followed, relentless. They reached the secondary defensive line, another barricade closer to the evacuation point. More coalition soldiers were there, but they looked exhausted. Many were wounded. A human commander, a woman named Captain Sumin, was coordinating the defense. She saw Minji's squad arrive and waved them over. How many did you lose? One, Junho said, his voice shaking. Cadet Lyra, she did not make it. I am sorry, Captain Sumin said. But we do not have time to mourn. The civilian transports are almost loaded. We need to hold for 30 more minutes. Can you do that? Minji looked at her squad. They were covered in dirt and blood, both their own and the enemy's. They looked terrified. But they nodded. Yes, ma'am, Minji said. Good. Take position on the right flank. They are hitting us hard there. They moved to their positions. Minji could see the civilian transports behind them, massive ships loading people as fast as possible. Children crying, families being torn apart, old people being carried on stretchers. This was what they were fighting for. Not territory. Not strategy. Levs, the Krith, came again. This time it was even worse. The creatures had learned. They moved smarter, using cover, coordinating their attacks. They were not just mindless insects. They were adapting. The battle became a nightmare. Minji lost track of time. She fought until her arms were numb, until her throat was raw from screaming orders, until she could not tell if the blood on her hands was hers or someone else's. Crix went down with a Krith claw through his shoulder. Minji dragged him behind cover while Junho provided covering fire. She used her medical kit to seal the wound as best she could. Crix was crying in pain, but he grabbed his rifle and kept fighting. A Torvan soldier beside her was overwhelmed by 3 Krith at once. Minji jumped forward without thinking, stabbing with her knife, kicking, clawing. She felt something tear in her shoulder but ignored it. The Torvan broke free and crushed one of the creatures. Together they killed the other 2. Thank you, human, the Torvan gasped. Thank me by staying alive, Minji said. Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world, the roar of ship engines. The civilian transports were lifting off. They had done it. The evacuation was complete. All units fall back to extraction point. Captain Soman's voice over the comm. I repeat, fall back now, they ran. The coalition line collapsed as everyone retreated at once. The Krith surged forward, sensing victory. But coalition air support appeared. Fighters screaming down from the sky to strafe the swarm and buy time for the ground forces to escape. Minji ran with her squad to the extraction point, a cleared area where military transports were landing. They threw themselves into the nearest ship. It was packed with soldiers from different units, all pressed together. The ship lifted off even before the ramp fully closed. Through the open ramp, Minji watched Praxis 7 fall away below them. The Krith covered the ground like a black carpet. The planet was lost, but the people were saved. 20 million lives. The transport docked with a coalition battle carrier in orbit. Medical teams swarmed the wounded. Minji found herself sitting against a bulkhead staring at nothing. Her hands would not stop shaking. Junho sat beside her. He did not say anything. He did not need to. They had survived. That was enough. Over the next weeks, the war continued. The coalition fought desperately to hold the line against the Krith swarm. But the tide was slowly turning. Not because of superior technology or numbers, because humans taught the coalition how to fight differently. Humans brought tactics from Earth's long history of warfare. Close quarters combat techniques, endurance fighting, the ability to keep going when all hope seemed lost. Other species were stronger or faster, but humans did not give up. Ever Minji's story spread through the coalition forces. The human cadet who broke a general's wrist, who stood trial and won, who led her squad in battle and saved lives. Other humans followed her example. They stopped trying to fight like aliens and started fighting like humans.